Roger Stone here for Colonial Metals Group. Colonial Metals Group helps Americans protect their future with the most trusted store of wealth in human history. That's actual physical gold and silver. If you're retiring or you're retired, go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/stone right now for your free Roger Stone Colonial Metals Group Retirement Protection Kit. Or call 800-747-6589. That's 800-747-6589. Call now to receive your free home safe and up to $7,500 in free silver.
Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby.
Well, after last night, what the heck is going on? And don't forget, the stock market went down 700 points today, panicking that Kamala Harris could become president. Oh, my God, what a fate worse than heck. Governor Pataki, 9/11 today. Where are we? Can there be another 9/11? And Rudy Washington, you were there too, Governor?
Yeah, John, I have to tell you that I have never been as concerned as I am now about another possibility of a terrorist attack. You know, we were all down there this morning. President Trump was there, President Biden, Kamala Harris, the whole J.D. Vance, everyone was there. And trying to remember that the horror of that day and the almost 3,000 people we lost and the courage we came together with. But what has been forgotten is that these were people who were committed to simply attacking us because of our love of freedom. And today we have millions who have crossed the border illegally. We know hundreds of them are terrorists. And I fear that we are more vulnerable today than we've ever been since September 11th of another attack. I think we are facing a grave danger of that happening.
Why are the Democrats, and I have to say it that way.
Yeah, you're right.
And I used to be a Democrat one day. But why are the Democrats letting these terrorists in?
It makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense.
It just doesn't make sense. And President Trump had a policy that was working. In the first day in office, the Biden-Harris administration reversed almost everything he did. And that's one of the sad things about the debate is that we never got to that serious a discussion about issues like that. But because of that open border, we're at greater risk today than we've been at any time since September 11th.
And, Governor,
wow.
I don't want to attack the Democrats. But the only reason I'm saying it, yesterday we had a big discussion that there was a bill before the Congress about only American citizens voting, and 198 Democrats voted against it.
Identity checks.
The identity check.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean,
only American citizens voted.
That's great.
Yeah, it's not a trick question.
In New York State, you don't have to show anything to register. You don't have to show anything to vote. You can just, I remember I worked very hard registering people when I was running for office, and you just have the forms and anybody can fill it out, sign it. You file it with the Board of Elections and then they can go vote without any ID. Yep. There's no question that there is voter fraud. There's no question that having IDs would limit that.
And Governor, yesterday we had a guy who was running for Congress in California in Orange County, and one of the comments he made that 40,700 new voters were registered in Orange County. 40,000 Democrats, 700 Republicans. How can that be?
It just doesn't make sense. It's basically a 50-50 county, a 50-50 district, and yet you have that overwhelming thing. So I think having faith in the integrity of our voting system is critical for a democracy, and making sure that those who vote are the right person who says they are and that they're citizens matters a great deal. And unfortunately, we don't have that.
Governor's worse than that.
Rudy Washington, first deputy mayor under Rudy Giuliani, and maybe related to George Washington. How do you feel about this?
Remember that.
How do you feel about this?
I wanted to say to the governor, it's even worse. Because when these migrants go into the hotel, they get voter registration forms. Now, how do you explain that?
You know, it's not. We know they're illegal.
Exactly.
I mean, that's why they're in the hotels in the first place.
Exactly.
And it just, you explain it by saying the Democrats who control the cities and who control right now the White House want their votes, and that shouldn't be the case. You should want the votes of American citizens. Period.
Absolutely, Judge Weinberg.
It's a federal crime to vote in a federal election unless you're a citizen. And so why is it so hard to verify whether a person's a citizen or not by having identification? What's the big deal? Why is that discriminatory?
Right. It's ridiculous. You know, the other thing, too, in the debate last night, you guys, as we're talking about this, I thought it was a disgrace that Kamala Harris was not pressed on her issues about saying she wants to open up the detention centers. She's talked about defunding ICE, defunding the police. She got a pass, and these are such serious issues, Governor Pataki.
She got a pass on so much. And, people are asking me who won the debate last night. My view on the debate is the American people were the losers. First of all, Donald Trump made terrible mistakes in responding to all her personal attacks and getting sidetracked from the issues and exactly what you're talking about, her position defunding the police and not working with ICE. And she actually helped raise funds for people who were rioters, violent rioters, because they were part of the BLM movement. So that never came up. So the American people were losers because President Trump never articulated his vision for the future. And we were losers because Kamala Harris, the only thing I remember her saying is that I'm still true to my principles. Well, those principles are to the left of Bernie Sanders, but she fudged it all by just pretending that she's a centrist. And, there's one thing that struck me, and that is that Bernie Sanders said that, yes, she's pretending to be something she isn't to get elected, but she is still true to her leftist principles. And we never heard that last night.
Yeah, and Rudy.
Don't forget the ACLU the day before. They found where the ACLU had given a questionnaire, and she endorsed all of those crazy ideas. She endorsed, transgender changes within prisons. And we all know once you go through that change.
At taxpayer expense,
you're on medication the rest of your life. She endorsed legalizing all drugs, fentanyl and all. It's all in.
And defunding ICE.
And defunding ICE.
And defunding ICE.
And the sad thing for the American.
And equating it as KKK. Let's not forget about that. She equated the ICE to the KKK.
And that never came out last night. And that's what's disappointing today.
The defining principle she has above everything else is opportunism. We'll say or do whatever is necessary to get herself elected to move up the food chain. That's Kamala Harris.
You know what was disgraceful? You brought up a great point, both of you guys, when you talked about the defund the police and the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which bailed out the rioters, right?
Bailed out rioters.
I was watching that moment. It was in a split screen, and you saw Kamala Harris. She said, not true. And nobody questioned her on it. She literally lied to the American public, and it was an easy thing, to your point, Rudy, that they could have checked. Go ahead.
There were so many things like that. The opening line of her presentation was, President Trump is going to impose a 20% sales tax on all Americans. President Trump has never proposed a sales tax of any type on the American people, and yet she was never challenged on that either. She should have been challenged on so much, but they let it pass.
And the moderators, Governor Nostrum, as governor, you know what Governor Nostrum said. Set the baby on the side, and we'll discuss it, whether to kill it or not.
Yeah.
And she said, nobody killed babies in this country.
Well, absolutely. That happened in Virginia. And unless I'm wrong in what I read, Governor Walz, vice presidential candidate Walz, signed a bill saying if a baby is born alive because of a botched abortion, there is no obligation to care for that child. And it's just incredible to me that none of this was brought out successfully last night.
I agree. And you know what was disgraceful, you guys? At 9:40, we were live where John and I were all covering the debate. And suddenly, all right, 9:40, it's 40 minutes into the debate. They finally asked her about the flip-flops. And I hear what you're saying, that Trump, he should have had other responses. It was 3 against 1, and she couldn't have handled that for 1 minute. Think about if the odds were the other way around, Governor Pataki. Can you imagine? She wouldn't have lasted. She would have lasted 5 seconds if suddenly all the moderators
were turning on her.
Right, and turning on her. How do you think she would have done?
Yeah, and if they had at all fact checked her, she would have been completely thrown off because the vast majority of what she was saying was just untrue and inaccurate.
And well, we have another guest in the studio. We have Richard Schwartz. Richard used to be with the Daily News. Or is it?
Yes. And I would say that when you look at this as a citizen, why is it that corporate media gets to be the gatekeeper on how the American public views these candidates? They can put their finger on the scales in ways that you can see overtly or not so overtly. And notwithstanding WABC Radio, that has done some brilliant down-the-middle debate moderation over the years, there are very few outlets that can do it right. And this is one of those situations where there ought to be a law. There ought to be a law that forces these candidates to do the debates with real people. Like, remember the old days, Jim Lehrer at PBS. PBS now could never do it. But back then, everybody could accept PBS, or God willing, we could have the reincarnation of Walter Cronkite. We don't have anybody like that now. And so we're stuck with this, and the American people get a bad deal on all of it.
Governor Pataki, you're on a tight schedule today because of 9/11. What else would you like to say?
Well, just tonight, the Pataki Center is holding a little get-together, and again, we're honoring people who have helped with Ground Zero. Jane Rosenthal, who created, along with Robert De Niro, the Tribeca Film Festival that has been so beneficial to Lower Manhattan. Bernadette Castro, who's done all the parks, including the Hudson River Park, that has been so effective. And then Lee Schreiber, the great actor who has been helping with humanitarian aid in Ukraine, and Andy Sabin, who also has been helping with humanitarian aid in Ukraine. So there'll be a couple of hundred of us who worked so hard, so closely together in September 11th and in the weeks and months after that to just reminisce and then honor those who have done so much.
Well, Governor Pataki, thank you, and I'll see you later on in your cocktail party tonight, and we'll always remember 9/11, and let me tell you something. We are in danger of another 9/11. Thank you.
Absolutely. And
Rita, do you have a special message for 9/11?
Yeah, yes, we do. And in fact, let me just read this too, because of course, this is a very important thing and obviously near and dear to Governor Pataki's heart. This is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation and WABC. We always remember 9/11 here. And born from the tragedy of 9/11, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation has been honoring America's heroes ever since. So everybody, just make sure you know how much we all love Tunnel to Towers. They do such amazing work. Donate, everybody, $11 a month at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org. And now we have Congressman Jim Jordan joining us right here on Katz and Cosby. Governor Pataki, so great to have you here. We love you.
Great to be here, Rita. And the chairman, Jordan, is having a tough race because the entire Democratic left is trying to defeat him, and we need him to continue his investigation.
We're going to fight for Congressman Jordan.
Absolutely. He's the best. He's the best. Chairman Jordan, first of all, your reaction to the debate. And just how important it is right now to pick a great commander-in-chief, given all the dynamics we've been talking about.
No, I thought President Trump did great. And you're right about the commander-in-chief. You know, the simple fact is when President Trump was in office, you didn't have Russia going into Ukraine. You didn't have Hamas and Hezbollah attacking our best friend, the state of Israel. It just didn't happen. I remember when Mike Pompeo was doing an interview shortly after Russia goes into Ukraine, and they asked us, Secretary Pompeo, said, Mr. Secretary, you know, if President Trump was in office, do you think this would happen? And he gave a great answer. He said, well, the short answer is I don't know, but I do know this. It didn't happen when President Trump was commander-in-chief. And that sort of says it all. So, yeah, that's a huge issue. But I think more importantly, we have now something we very seldom get in American politics. You got back-to-back administrations running for the top job. And then you just look at the records. And I tell everyone, we went from a secure border under President Trump to no border under Biden-Harris. We went from $2 gas under President Trump to $4 gas under Biden-Harris. We went from safe streets under President Trump to record crime under Biden-Harris. And we went from stable pricing, maybe the most important, to record inflation under Biden-Harris. Record inflation so much to take your family out to dinner and see what it costs now. And that's the difference. And so when we get to these issues and facts, I think that's why President Trump's going to win.
And I would hope so. You saw what happened at the debate last night, and President Trump should have pointed that out, that Joe Biden and the Biden clan, they promised to help poor people and help medium income people. When they made poor people poorer, and they made the medium people poorer because they doubled the price of gasoline, and they increased the price of food 30-40%.
Right. I mean, the cruelest tax of all is inflation. We've had record inflation, which means basically record taxation on American families. Go to the grocery store, go to the gas station, take your family out to dinner, and see what everyone knows how bad that has been. So, and then you couple that with 10 million migrants entering the country in 3 years and 7 months under the Biden-Harris administration. 99 of those 10 million are on the terrorist watch list, and they did not detain them. They've been released into the country. This is one of the investigations and reports we put out just a few weeks ago. Yesterday, we had 4 moms testify who've lost their children. 3 of the moms had their daughters. I mean, you can't even talk about it. It was so bad what happened, and their lives taken from them by a migrant committing crime. And, of course, you know what that's like in New York City, with the migrant crime problem there. This is all because they intentionally, deliberately, willfully on day one said, no more building the wall, no more remaining in Mexico, and when you get to our border, you will not be detained, you will be released. And those 3 things fundamentally have changed things and hurt so many American families and so many communities.
And Congressman, go ahead, Rita.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chairman, I watched the hearing yesterday because you just teed up exactly where it was. You were phenomenal, by the way, in the hearing yesterday with the migrant victims' families. Yep. And those parents, if you don't like well up when you hear what happened to Joycelyn Nungari. Think about in Texas, that beautiful young girl, and we heard her mother saying what happened to her at the hands of illegal migrants who had just crossed the border and committed other crimes. And then Rachel Morin's mother, who talked about the migrants, the illegal migrants who crossed 3 times. What do you want to say to Americans? Because, boy, that needed to be spotlighted, and in the debate, they glossed over it.
Call up your member and tell them to at least vote for the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act, which says, in the climate we've just described, 10 million migrants coming in, 99 on the terrorist watch list, we think it makes sense if you go to register to vote to demonstrate that you're a citizen, to prove that you're a citizen. That bill passed the House, even had 5 Democrats vote for it, but Chuck Schumer won't bring it up. No, we can't do that. Then think about that. So, and call up your member and say, hey, let's get control of this border so that we don't have Lincoln Riley and Miss Morin and Miss Nungari and all these families who've been hit so hard, not to mention what's happening in Springfield, Ohio, where it looks like approaching 20,000 Haitians are in a community of 60,000 people. The impacts on your healthcare system, your education system, when you have that kind of influx of migrants, that is all attributable to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Congressman, this is Rudy Washington. One of the other things that disappointed me was they allowed her to run as if she was an outsider and that she had nothing to do with any of this. That she wasn't questioning on the fact that, you know, every step Governor Abbott took to seal the border, their Justice Department sued to them. Every step of the way. They didn't hang that around her neck as a cowbell. You fought to keep that. You fought to keep that border open and allow these people to come in. And the other thing they didn't develop, but Zelensky on foreign affairs, we tied his hands behind his back. He wanted offensive weapons. They wouldn't give it to him. Out of fear, Russia might escalate. Poland wanted to give him fighter jets. They stopped Poland. Wouldn't give it to him. But I remember what Eisenhower said on his way out the door. Beware of the military-industrial complex. Trump is right. All we've done is kill off a generation of Ukrainians. That's all and we're responsible. This administration is responsible for that. They wouldn't give him offensive weapons that he could win, and all they did was kill off a bunch of young people. You go to Israel, they did the exact same thing. Tied the hands of Netanyahu behind his back, held him up, won't give him weapons. Oh, but we support the state of Israel. That's a joke.
Congressman, your reaction, powerful comments, Rudy.
Well, I thought where President Trump was really effective last night. I mean, I thought he did well the whole debate, but his closing statement when he basically referenced, "You've been there," as Rudy was just saying, "You've been there 3.5 years." You know, if you could have done all these things, the opportunity culture she's talking about, why didn't you do them? And everyone knows when that this fundamental comparison, what life was like under President Trump versus what it's been like the last 3.5 years. And that, to me, is the key comparison. You know, basically for 50-some days, it's been one big pep rally for Kamala Harris. And I remember back in school, you know, the pep rally, the band's playing, the cheerleaders are cheering, the students are clapping. But at some point, you got to go play the game. Or my sport was wrestling. At some point, you got to step on the mat. And stepping on the mat's a lot different than the pep rally. And so last night, we started to see what it's like. You step on the mat, you get to compare the two administrations, you get to the facts, you get to the issues. I think once that really starts to soak in, people are going to say, heck yeah, we need President Trump back in the Oval Office. And I apologize, guys. I got to vote on the House floor.
Thank you for coming on, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.
Take care, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Congressman Jordan. Let's go to a break, and we're going to come right back. We got
Ari Fleischer.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Cats and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And everybody, we are back now here on Cats and Cosby. Everybody talking about the debate, the 3-on-1 debate, I call it. And joining us now is the great former White House press secretary, Ari Fleischer. Ari, your reaction to the debate. First of all, who won, who lost? I say the American public lost.
Well, I hate to say it, but it was a real missed opportunity by President Trump to drive home just how bad Kamala Harris is. He did it twice. He did it early on in the debate when he took her over her old issues, as she would say, her previous position about fracking, about gun confiscation, and he did it in his closing statement. But guys, what he missed was doing it on every single question, because that's what you do. You define your opponent. You play offense, and he played too much defense, rebutting each and every little individual point that she would make about the rallies, about nonsense issues. He would go into whatever agenda she opened up, and he should have ignored 3/4 of the things she talked about and made her respond to him, because he should have been relentless on walking the American people through all the liberal, extreme San Francisco positions she has taken and hung them all around her neck. And I don't think he did that.
You know, Ari, I have a thought. I'm going to steal a line from Judge Weinberg, who's here in studio with us. Do you think he should have done a Newt Gingrich? And the reason I say that to you is I think he expected the moderators to be not necessarily fair to him, which they certainly were not. But I don't think he expected it to the degree. Should he have actually, and I think of Newt was masterful at that debate, that very famous one where he really did go almost nuclear on the moderators. And he said, how dare you? Bah, 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 bah. This is why the American public doesn't trust the media. I say that as a member of the media, but would that have been the only choice, given it really did feel like 3 against 1?
You know, normally I would say yes, but he first had to take care of the Kamala Harris business before fighting with the press, where there's a lot to fight with them about. He first needed to fight with Kamala Harris. So if he had made the case of what a San Francisco liberal she is, and nobody in America believes all her flip-flops, and if she gets in, she's going to ban fracking and ban liquid natural gas exports, and she's going to confiscate our guns. She called ICE the KKK. She said the Border Patrol whipped migrants. She's a liberal at every turn that you can imagine. Take away your private health insurance. If he had prosecuted her, then he could have said with a smile, and I've got to take you guys on too, because you're defending her. Of course you are. You're all liberals. But he didn't do the first part of it. And so taking down the press, he's not running against he is running against the press.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But he's first got to run through Kamala Harris.
Do you think it's because
he had a bad night? I mean,
yeah,
you have to say that. I don't know if he was tired. I don't know if he didn't prepare, but he did have a bad night. Originally, going into the last night, I was comparing it to her being a lightweight, 100-pound lightweight going against a 300-pound heavyweight, and she balanced it out.
Yeah, what I think the biggest damage, and I think it's going to be minimal in terms of actually changing voter behavior, but she actually credentialed herself in the eyes of maybe some doubters that, yeah, I could see her. She seemed steady. She wasn't nothing but a word salad. And that helped made her look a little more presidential. And that's why I made the point I make. And I take no pleasure in making this point about President Trump. I wish he had put her on the defensive on every single question. So after the debate was over, her team turned to her and said, man, all you did was rebut Trump, because he should have been more relentless on her vulnerabilities.
Do you think, Ari, that he was maybe told, don't attack, try to, whatever she says, almost in the Biden theme. Remember, he just kind of let Biden fall apart. Do you think he almost went in with that same mindset, or was told to, whatever you do, don't come across mean, don't go after her, don't look angry, it's a woman, all of those things, and maybe overcompensated in that regard, and that held him back?
Yeah, Rita, that crossed my mind. I do worry about that. I do think that may be what was going on. I'm not sure. The other issue is, how much of her liberal positions does he really know? Has he memorized it? Does he have it internalized? I mean, does it just roll off his tongue because he studied, watched her tapes, and saw how liberal she is on each and every position? Sometimes he stumbles over it and uses shorthand as he describes these things. He was in the best position anybody will ever be to inform the American people about who Kamala Harris is. He should have been the nation's reporter last night, the nation's anchor, filling in the American people on Kamala Harris's background and record. And all he had to do was factually lay it out. But, I don't know. Did he know it? Was he fluent in it? Because he didn't come across with it as such a comfortable flow off his lips about all the positions she's taken.
Judge Weinberg.
I think it's probably more of that.
All right. It's good to talk to you again. I think you're absolutely right. You don't go out there and say, you're a Marxist and your father was a Marxist. That doesn't mean anything. What it means is you're going to raise taxes. You caused the inflation. You had phony bills with respect to the Green New Deal. You did all these wrong things. You opened up the border. Those are the ways you do it, by doing specific point after point after point. Everything she's done wrong. You want to defund the police. You want to defund ICE. The crime is up. He didn't do that. Saying to in a debate, you're a Marxist, your father's a Marxist, doesn't get the message of point. A lot of people don't even know what a Marxist is. They think it's Groucho Marx.
He did it twice. He did it twice. But my point is, when you prepare for a debate, you want to do it every question. No matter what the question is, you bring it back to your opponent's weaknesses. And that's what she tried to do to him on every question. She didn't answer any questions. She didn't define who herself was. The one question where ABC asked her about her flip-flops on issues, she said, I'll answer that in just a second, and never answered that. But Trump didn't pounce on it. And your point about maybe somebody coached him, don't pounce on her, may have been right.
Ari, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Ari.
He had a bad night, and let's hope we go upwards from now.
Thank you, guys. Always great to be with you.
We love having you. Thank you, Ari.
And Rita, you have some hot news?
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
Yes, we do. Well, we were talking about the debate just a few seconds ago here, John, and following last night's presidential debate between Trump and Harris, it's not clear if there will be another debate before the November election. Harris has said she wants to do one. That's what she came out with soon afterwards. Her team did. Fox News has reportedly suggested 3 potential dates to each campaign. Also NBC. So far, nothing confirmed. So the big question is, will there or won't there be? And also, President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, also former President Trump and Senator J.D. Vance all attended today's ceremony remembering the 9/11 attacks on this 23rd anniversary. During the reading of the names at Ground Zero, FDNY widow Joanne Barbara slammed the federal government for considering a plea deal for the mastermind behind the attack, of course, on 9/11. She also threw shade on President Biden's way, noting his comment where he said yesterday he'll be doing 9/11 today. She said was a flippant remark. And those are the big headlines of the day, everybody.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby talking about the debate. And joining us now is Joe Concha, great media analyst, also columnist, also the author of the big best-selling book, Progressively Worse. Joe, was it 3-1 last night against Trump?
You know it. And I got some other numbers for you, okay? 5060, okay? So I'm going to go through these four numbers right now. First, number 5, that stands for the number of fact checks, Rita, John, that ABC did of Donald Trump. The second number, 0, is the number of fact checks ABC did of Kamala Harris. The third number is 6. That's the number of follow-ups ABC did of Donald Trump. Fourth number, 0. That's the number of follow-ups they did of Kamala Harris. This was an absolute disgrace. There is no other way to put it. 3-on-1, oh, you know it. And ABC should never host a debate again. David Muir and Lindsey Davis should never be considered to be called journalists ever again. But here's what I'm going to tell you, though. Despite all the negative coverage we're seeing today in terms of the way Donald Trump performed, and it was not his best night, and I heard your interview before with Ari, he would only make half a point, but he never connected the dot back, right? And so I'm not saying that Trump performed particularly well. But now I'm seeing, for instance, a Reuters focus group. They interviewed 10 undecided voters, and afterwards they said, how are you going to vote now after watching the debate? 6 said they'd vote for Donald Trump, only 3 for Kamala Harris, 1 undecided. Lee Carter was on Fox News earlier talking about this, swung heavily towards independence for Donald Trump in terms of who they thought performed better. So while Kamala Harris, yes, she performed well, and she remembered all of her rehearsed lines very well, but there was an authenticity problem there. It was all foam and no beer, and the bottom line is people went into this debate to see Kamala Harris, because we already know about Donald Trump. We already saw his presidency. We know where he stands. But they wanted to see what Kamala Harris was going to say in terms of her policy on inflation and economy and the border and crime and foreign wars and down the line. And we still don't know anything because she didn't tell us anything.
Yeah, no, you're right. You know what's interesting, Joe? I always watch everybody, and I was sitting there and I was watching CNN. And it was Van Jones who said on CNN right after the debate, soon afterwards, he said, Trump got spanked. Anderson Cooper used the phrase he got emasculated. So if you sit there and you're watching, you're a CNN viewer or an MSNBC, do they understand that, to your point, there was no substance?
No, they're just telling the audience what they want to hear. So if you're watching CNN or MSNBC after a presidential debate, there's a good chance you probably were going to vote for Kamala Harris already. So, yeah, that's just all performance art on their part at this point. But, yeah, if Van Jones wants to talk about spanked, well, the moderators last night, and David Muir and Lindsey Davis, basically gave Kamala Harris a colonoscopy with their eyeballs. Okay, I mean, they were just so far up there as far as just those questions. And the fact that you let her get away with so much where she said, oh, Donald Trump wants a national ban on abortion. No, he doesn't. Oh, he wants to ban IVF fertilization. No, he doesn't. You say, oh, Donald Trump said there'll be a bloodbath if he loses. He's talking about the financial markets. And again, she said she was for fracking going all the way back 4 years ago. No, she didn't. She never did. They banned fracking on federal lands. That's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on day one of their administration. They shut down the Keystone Pipeline. So Donald Trump, if they do get another debate, and I hope it's a town hall type of setting, because I think he'll do better with an audience. I'd rather have the audience asking as many questions as possible than these corrupt moderators. He needs to connect those dots. So when he talked about immigration and talked about Springfield, Ohio, and they're eating the dogs, and that obviously led to a lot of ridicule online, he's got to say something more like, in my beloved city of New York or Chicago, San Francisco, they're cutting social services to sanitation, education, and to police. And that impacts people who live here legally in terms of their safety, in terms of their ability to get more jobs, in terms of the need and the desire to live in a
let me tell you what's happening.
You know what I'm saying, guys? We've got to connect the dots.
Joe, let me tell you what's happening in Long Island. There are police reports in Long Island that the Haitian migrants are going into the parks, taking the ducks that are swimming around, killing them and eating them. And I think that's what Donald Trump meant.
Yeah, no, I know that. And we're hearing on the ground reports from people saying this is absolutely happening. Only the city planner, according to ABC. Well, he said, no, it's not happening at all. But we're seeing more and more viral videos saying that. I get it completely, but I think he's got to make more of a macro argument that immigration matters not only because of our national security, but also because of the ability to earn here and the fact that your services are being cut because we're paying all these city budgets. The money is being allocated to take care of those who are here illegally. I think if you just say that, it'll be better. Go ahead.
Joe, this is Rudy Washington. If I'm correct, this took place in Pennsylvania, right? The debate.
Yeah, Philadelphia.
Right. And a missed opportunity, what you just said. What was it, 100 and some executive orders in the first week undoing everything that Donald Trump put in place? How many jobs were lost on Keystone from Canada to Texas to the Gulf?
Exactly.
He didn't talk about none of the jobs that they devastated within the energy industry. Or he didn't even talk about the coal industry, that we produce the safest coal in the country, or the oil. I mean, missed opportunities. Fracking, Pennsylvania, a fracking state.
Rudy, all he has to say is, the way I performed and my stance on fracking. You know that because we had more domestic energy production here under my administration than at any time in our history. So you don't have to believe me or trust me on that. You can see my actions. My opponent says she was 100% for fracking, and now because she wants to win Pennsylvania, now she's saying, against fracking. Now she's for fracking. So who do you believe? The guy who actually did it? Or
I don't believe Kamala.
Wants your vote?
I don't believe Kamala.
Just voted.
Joe Concha, thank you so much, and keep fighting for America. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. Thanks.
Thank you.
I understand Mr. Goodwin is on. You want to bring him back?
Yeah. Should we do him now or after the break?
Let's do him right now.
All right, great. So let's go. Let's go right now to Michael Goodwin. You want to bring him in, John? And joining us now here on Cats and Cosby is a great Pulitzer Prize winning columnist, Michael Goodwin. Michael, your reaction to the debate. You had a very powerful column about it.
Well, thank you, Rita. I think Kamala Harris overperformed and Donald Trump underperformed. And we'll have to see how far the needle moves in terms of the polls. That'll take, as my friend Ed Rollins says, it takes a week or two to seep through the bloodstream. We'll see what the audience was, how many people stayed into the end, et cetera. But I think there's no question that she helped herself, and he probably, I don't know if he hurt himself with his supporters, but I don't think he gained any new supporters as a result of last night.
I agree with you, Michael. And it's similar to, I didn't think she would perform that well. And I've said that all last week. I made the example, it's like a lightweight weighing 100 pounds going after a heavyweight in a boxing match weighing 300 pounds. And she surprised everybody and did perform better than anybody expected. And go ahead, Michael.
Well, I was going to say, I like the boxing metaphor, John, and I thought of one later, too, which was Muhammad Ali versus Sonny Liston. Sting like a butterfly, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I think that was sort of her tactic. It was to sort of fly above the radar and then just come down occasionally and hit him. And he looked like he didn't quite know where she was and how to hit back. And he, I think, got tangled up in his own thoughts. He just seemed to be out of sorts and never quite could get completely on track.
You know, Michael, though, in fairness to Trump, I was disgusted at the way ABC News. I've moderated debates. We've all covered many debates. I have never seen such biased journalists. And on the flip side, they were so, like, I use the word almost complicit with her. They allowed her to bob and weave. They didn't ask about her flip-flopping. They seemed more concerned about January 6th and the election than the economy, than immigration, than all those things. It was disgusting.
It's like they had an agenda.
Oh, yes. I completely agree. And, it was essentially 3 against 1. And you're right about the lack of follow-ups to her. I don't believe they pushed her on anything. Even when they asked a decent question, such as about fracking and things like that, they let her get away with just a speech, which she had clearly rehearsed. She rehearsed a lot. You could see she had worked on this. She put a lot of work into this performance. She was an actress playing the role, and she played the role well. The hand on the chin, the smile, the shaking the head, she turned to him. She spoke to him a lot. So while I do believe the moderators had a large impact on this, and I think that they contributed to Trump's sour mood and his decision to sort of just keep hammering her without really connecting her to the Biden administration in ways that I think would have resonated. He didn't come with any new idea. And I have to say, too, on the abortion issue, I think he hurt himself. And here's why. I think the question of a ban, an abortion ban, would he sign an abortion ban as president if it came to his desk? He has said before, and he told me, that he would veto an abortion ban. He would not sign an abortion ban, in part because he believes in exceptions for the health of the mother, right? Rape, incest, health of the mother. Those are three exceptions he has talked about repeatedly. Well, if that's the case, then of course you would sign an abortion ban if it allowed no exceptions. He didn't say that last night. So I think there will be repercussions. I may be wrong, but I think there'll be some repercussions from the way he tried to dance around that last night. And I thought that it was a low moment when he said, I haven't discussed this with J.D. Vance. I find that very hard to believe.
Yeah, see, I thought actually some of his answers on that was decent. I hear where you're coming from, but I thought he also said, let's go to the states. It's up to the voters. I thought that was powerful. Real quick before we let you go, where do you think the race goes from here, Michael?
I suspect that there's not a dramatic change from last night. I think she helped herself. We won't know for a couple of weeks, and there'll be lots of intervening events, presumably, in the meantime. So we may never know exactly what the impact was of last night. But if you going into the debate, she was sagging. The euphoria was over, and he was gaining ground. And, Nate Silver had him a 62% chance of winning the Electoral College, et cetera. I think there's probably a few nicks in that scenario now. But it's clearly not over. It's clearly still a tight race that could go either way depending on what happens in the next 60 days or so.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Michael Goodwin, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. We love having you here on the show. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you both.
And wow. And John, after the break, we're going to be talking to Democratic pollster Doug Jones.
Let's see where the Democrats are on this on yesterday's debate.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And everybody, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation and WABC remember 9/11. America's heroes need your help. Do good in their honor by donating just $11 a month to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Go to T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. And joining us now is the great Democratic pollster, Doug Schoen. Doug, your reaction to the debate?
Well, I'll tell you, as usual, what Michael Goodwin said matches what I think quite clearly. I thought Kamala Harris won the debate. I think she won clearly. I think she was aided extraordinarily and inexorably by David Muir. I don't think it's going to make a long-term difference. It might give her a couple of point bounce for a week, 10 days or thereabouts. But I thought Donald Trump missed every opportunity to make the case about her failings and that of Joe Biden, principally on the economy. And he didn't outline differences between his approach and her approach to his detriment.
So, on the other hand, where does the race go from here?
I think she'll pick up a couple of points potentially, but ultimately this is a close race. I think it'll stay a close race, and I think it's going down to the wire, Rita.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was tight already. What about another debate? What did you make of the fact that her team came out pretty quickly afterwards and said she'd like another debate in October? Do you think, what's the strategy, and do you think it'll happen?
She wanted to get a knockout punch.
Well, yeah, I mean, politics is pretty simple. She won. She knows she won. She knows Trump is not going to accept another debate. I wouldn't if I were him. So she tried to look strong by saying she wanted a debate, and Trump will say, fine, I'll have another debate on Fox News, and the chance that she goes on Fox News is about zero.
Yeah, because I think Fox News would be a little more difficult than David Muir. Rudy Washington.
Well, Doug, I very rarely disagree with you, but I think Trump desperately would want another debate, and he would want it on Fox. And I would say, look, all the debates that have taken place have been on the terms of the Democrats, Joe Biden's and hers, on their terms. Now, he should push for a Fox debate. Now, I agree with you on something else. She'll never accept it. So, I don't know where he goes with this or who the moderators would be or what network. But I think he got to have another one.
Well, I hope we have another one. As a citizen, I think it's good for the democracy. But candidly, as a political consultant, and you've run for office, Rudy, you know this, the job of the consultant is to win the election, not keep the American people happy. And if I were her advisor, I would say CBS, ABC, NBC, yes. Any chance that I would go on Fox News would be about zero if I were her. I think Trump said he'd go on CNBC. I don't think she'd accept that. She might, but I don't think so.
Now, Doug, if I was advising her, I would tell her, sit down, go sit on the sofa, no more debates. And I would do maybe another Dana Bash or, early November, George Stephanopoulos or something, interviews. I would not do another debate. She came out on top. I would leave it alone.
I agree. Completely agree. Well said. Exactly how I see it.
Yeah, which is why you think it's just a baiting technique.
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you make though? What's interesting? We were just talking before about how the independents, some of the polling was showing like the independents and the Republicans seemed to be in line almost last night. I was looking at some of the polling today, and it looks like they were happy when he was talking about crime because it's something they care about. They were happy when he was addressing economy. We all feel it. They were happy when he was talking about border. And they seem, so what do you think Trump needs to do now? Because it seems like his issues are in line with where many independents and obviously many others are.
That's exactly right, Rita. Independents want to vote against Biden's policies. The problem is Trump gave them far less opportunity to align with him and his approach because he didn't talk about it enough. I know that what you're saying about the polling is right. The problem is Trump didn't hammer these issues. He just got angry and he took the bait about things like the size of rally crowds. He should have said, it's not about the size of my rallies. It's about the impact of inflation.
Doug,
it's about the cost of groceries, gasoline. That's what people are worried about.
Doug, your evaluation, was he just tired? Was he not prepared? What do you think went wrong? I mean, and he had such a mean look in his face at the beginning of the debate.
I think he was a little tired. I think he had trouble making sense of how to approach a younger African-American, Asian woman. And I think he got frustrated, as I think all of us might have, with a moderator who was clearly giving him a harder time than he
100%.
gave to her.
Doug, give me a second. Steve Moore just walked into the studio. Steve, why was the stock market down 700 points this morning? Were they panicking that Kamala Harris could become president?
I think so, but you know what happened? Look, it wasn't Trump's shining moment, but he did well enough, and I wish he had talked more about the economy because I read, John, that the number one issue for the American voters is the economy. Do you know how many minutes out of a 90-minute debate they talked about the economy?
I do, but I'm not going to answer it. Go ahead.
I think it's, 7?
16. 16, I was told.
So,
16.
come on. People want to know about inflation. They want to know about why everything's so expensive. They want to know why the jobs are in
jeopardy. The price of gasoline is double what they used to pay. And the price of food is 40% up. Doug, what do you say?
I couldn't agree more. Trump missed every opportunity to say, I want to cut taxes.
Yes.
I want to bring down spending, et cetera, et cetera.
By the way, I don't think the word taxes was even mentioned in that debate.
You're right.
It's a $5 trillion tax increase she's talking about. And
right.
Look, I think Trump missed an opportunity there, but he survived. And one other quick thing, if I may. I thought his best line was his last line when at his closing statement, he said, Kamala spent the last hour and a half talking about all these wonderful things she's going to do. Why hasn't she done it? Remember that? Why hasn't she done it?
She's been there for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
That was a great line. I thought that, and also in the beginning when he said her economic policy is like C-Spot Run. I thought that at the beginning and the end, those were like the two best. And I think he should have hit on that, Steve. Don't you think? I mean, he should have hit.
I wish he had one other issue. When the issue of race keeps coming up, and they keep calling, John, they keep saying he's a racist and da-da-da. He should have said, and we've talked about this, he knows he should have said, look, no president in modern times has done more for raising the incomes of black Americans than I have. No president has done more for Hispanics and blacks in terms of reducing the poverty rate than I have. No president has done more to raise the incomes for blacks and Hispanics than I have. And then you should have said, and by the way, I'm for every kid having school choice so they can send their kids to whatever school they want to. Kamala, you're against that. I mean, there were so many opportunities, but the fact is, I think people are way overblowing this thing. I think he survived. I think he's still going to win this race because Kamala she doesn't come across as genuine. She came across as scripted, and I don't think people trust her when she says it. Do you?
I think it's I agree. Doug, thank you, Doug.
We're going into Mark Levin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Richard. And
what do we all stand for?
Truth,
justice, and the American way.